So 7 steps to business success, that's why you're here. And many business owners look to marketing and increasing sales and incentive indicators of their business success. But whilst these things are really important, there are many aspects of a business that can be even more helpful, perhaps things you hadn't thought about previously. So today, what we're going to explore is 7 other aspects to help make your business even more successful. And before we begin today, I'd like to acknowledge traditional owners of the land which I'm presenting to you today. I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to their elders, both past, present, and emerging. And I'd also like to pay my respects to those of you participating today who identify as both Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, and recognise the diversity of Indigenous peoples, cultures, and communities across Australia. Now, I'm here on Gadigal land, and my name's Lali Wiratunga. I represent Westpac's Davidson Institute, and I'm really delighted that ezyCollect could bring us together today. What I'd love you to do, just before we really get into today's session, is maybe on the chat functionality we've got there, if you can drop in where you're based, so that both myself and also your fellow participants get a sense of who's in the room and where they're located in our beautiful country. So I'll give you a moment just to pop in the chat where you're located. Thank you again. And whilst those chat messages are coming up, just another thing I'd love you to think about is, what would you like to get out of today's session? So 2 things I'd like you to do is just pop in the chat where you're located. You're in Gadigal land, or you're in Sydney, you're in Melbourne, wherever you are. And also, what are you expecting from today's conversation? So I'm sure those messages are going to appear on the chat for all of us to look at as we go through today's session. So a quick piece of housekeeping to share with you. The information contained in the presentation is general in nature, and it's been prepared without taking your specific objectives, needs, and overall financial situation into account. So for this reason, should you want to consider the appropriateness of the information to your own circumstances, we definitely recommend you get appropriate professional advice and speak to another professional who can help you out, perhaps a tax accountant or an advisor. So let's get into this. What are those 7 steps to a successful business? Now, the first one is to have a business plan, not just a vision. And once you have a business plan, you need to understand your financial statements and use them to monitor your financial position. Our next step is to understand the relationship between your price, volume, and cost, because that's all about profitability. Making profit is one thing, but you also need to manage your cash flow on a day-to-day basis. One of the major uses of your cash in your business is for growth. If you're growing your business, do you know how much cash you need to support that growth? And once you know how much cash you need, getting your borrowing structures right, it's got to be really important for you and your business. And finally, don't forget to plan for the end game. Transitioning out of your business and maybe something you'd like to consider in the future. So let's explore each of those aspects in a little bit more detail so you can make the most of your business and make it even more successful. Let's get started with having a plan, not just a vision. Now, there's an old adage which says, fail to plan, plan to fail. I don't think it's actually quite that bad, but I do believe there are many benefits that come from having a business plan. Now, when I'm talking about planning, there are lots of types of plans. There's great big 200-page documents. There's your plans for the next 3 months. And in fact, there could just be your plans for today. Your business plan doesn't need to be huge. However, it does need to work for you and for your business. And it enables you to be in your business rather than taking up space in your bottom drawer as just a document that's sitting there. I know many business owners that have great visions for their business, but I also know that there are ones that tend to be more successful because they've got a written plan. Can't emphasize how important it is to write your plans down. There are 2 main reasons to write your plans down. Firstly, it starts to work in your subconscious. If you write your plans down, you're subconsciously committing to setting out and achieving goals and objectives. Secondly, if you've got them written down, you can pull them out every now and then and have a look at them and ask yourself questions like, am I still heading here? Or have I let myself be distracted or pulled off course due to other things? But even though writing them down is important, I think it's actually the process of planning that you gain most benefit from. Being able to look at different scenarios and outcomes and deciding which is best for you and your business, then committing to that course of action gives you the opportunity to really focus on what you want to achieve out of that business. If you want to find out more about planning for your business, please do check out the videos that we've got available on the Davidson Institute site, which is davidsoninstitute.education. Now, once you've got your plan in place, you've started to implement it, you discover not everything goes according to plan. That's why it's important to monitor how you're going. Now, for many clients and customers out there, monitoring their financial position might mean checking their bank balance at the beginning of the day to ensure they have enough to pay the day's wages, for example, or that annual visit to the accountant to get their taxes done. But trust me, there's a whole lot more to it than that. There's a wealth of information for you in your financial statements if you know how to read them and really drill down into the story that those numbers behind your business are trying to tell you. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the financial operating cycle. But before we go into the financial operating cycle, just to let you know, as we go through today's session, please think about the questions you might have, pop them down in the chat. And at the end of the presentation part of this session, I'll have a look at your questions and hopefully get around to answering all of them. So on the financial operating cycle, a good starting point for understanding what your financial reports are telling you, it's this financial operating cycle. Let's have a look at the financial operating cycle because it describes how every business operates financially, whether they're large or small. When you first go into business, what do? You break open that piggy bank perhaps and get all the money you can together to put into the business and get it up and running. Now that's known as the net worth or equity. This is your money, the owner's money invested in your business. The owner's money is not always enough to get the business up and running. So you might buy some stock on credit or you might borrow from a bank. In accounting terms, the borrowed money is called liabilities. In other words, you could call it other people's money. So you have your money in the net worth, the other people's money, liabilities. Now what you're going to do with it, you'll spend it on other things like cash, debtors, stock, plant and equipment, computers, motor vehicles, and so on. And all those things you'll need to operate your business, things that we like to call assets. Then what do you do with these assets? You make use of the assets to make sales. Of course, once you're making sales, you're going to have a series of expenses. If you manage this well and your sales are greater than your expenses, you make a profit. If you make a profit, the tax man, the ATO, may want to take its share. But at the end of the day, you're left with net profit after tax or NPAT. Then there are three things you can do with the profits from your business. Firstly, you can reinvest them in assets to continue to grow the business. You can then use the profits to reduce debt and reduce risk exposure to your business. Or you could take the profits home, taking profits out of the business to continue to grow your own personal wealth. And so the cycle continues. The financial operating cycle is how every business in the world operates. It does not matter how big or how small it is. It doesn't really matter what industry the business is in. They all operate effectively the same way financially. And the key to the long-term sustainability is to keep that cycle turning over smoothly and efficiently. Now, those of you who are familiar with the statements may have recognized that along the top here is a picture of effectively our balance sheet. And down the left is a picture of our income statement or profit and loss, as you probably know it. So when we view this, we can start to see what's happening in your balance sheet and in your income statement and vice versa. What happens in your income statement will impact your balance sheet. So now we can see that these two financial statements are intrinsically linked and that we now have a more holistic picture of the business instead of just concentrating on profits or on sales. Understanding this cycle and how it works in your business is going to help you to begin to monitor your financial position. Now, of course, this is also explored in much further detail in the Davidson Institute, where we've got some more information around how to understand financial statements. At the moment, we're going through a very high-level overview. So there we see it there. On the top, we've got the balance sheets, and going from top to bottom on the left-hand side, we've got the income statement of profit and loss. So moving on, our next step here is to understand the relationship between your price, volume, and costs. Having a look at this relationship between price, volume, and costs, it's really important. It's about profitability, and it's something every business owner should have really keen interest in. Think about it. Price is how much you sell your goods and services for. Volume is how much of them you can sell, and costs are how much it costs you to do that, leaving you your profits. So if my costs are going up and I want to stay as profitable as I am now, then that means either I need to sell more or I need to put up my prices, but by how much? If I put my prices up, I'm likely to sell less. How much less can I afford to sell without my business going backwards? Or what if I put my prices down to match the competition? That'll mean I need to sell more because it's unlikely that my costs will go down commensurately in the same proportion. But how much do I need to sell? And also, what if that's not possible? To help answer these questions and more, you can use a really important tool called break-even analysis. Break-even analysis is an absolutely fabulous tool, and it's also really simple to use. Break-even, of course, is the point where a business makes no profit, but it also makes no loss. But another way of thinking about it is the point you need to get past to start making profits. Imagine you have a customer who owns a little coffee booth, and he knew exactly how many coffees he had to sell each day to break even, and how much profit each coffee made after that made him. If he hadn't reached his break-even number of coffees by, say, 11 o'clock in the morning, he went into action to ensure he sold enough to make his profit target for the day. But it's not just telling you what level of sales you have to get over before you start making a profit. It can also help you with the day-to-day decision-making in your business. And what if your costs go up, like your rent, your insurance premiums, or energy costs, as many of us will have seen with the cost of living crisis? What have you got to do in your business to continue to make the same amount of profits? Break-even analysis can help you understand the relationship between your price, your volume, and your costs, which can help you make more informed decisions about growing your business, putting on additional employees if appropriate, purchasing new equipment, about matching the competitors' pricing, or putting up your pricing. It's a great tool. It can help you to answer lots of questions. And again, this is a bit of a whistle-stop tour. So if you want to know more about break-even analysis, we've got some information on the Davidson Institute site. So now that you've got your profitability under control, the fourth step of a successful business is to manage cash flow. Believe that the two are not the same, and your business needs both to be sustainable in the long run. Someone once said, profit is a matter of opinion. It is something your accountant puts together for you. But cash is real. Cash is the lifeblood of your business. If you run out of cash and you cannot pay your bills, as and when they fall due, you may potentially be out of business. Whenever we look at a business, one of the first things you might want to understand is the cash flow. That's the cash that's flowing through that business. A great starting point to understand how cash flows through a business, it's called the working capital cycle. Now, every business has a working capital cycle, but they're not all the same. We're going to start out with a generic working capital cycle, and then let's talk about some of the variations on that generic working capital cycle. So you start off with the money or cash sitting in a bank account. And now with the money sitting in the bank account, It's not really doing that much. It's maybe having a little bit of interest. You want to use that cash to make profits. To do this, you first need to buy something that you can sell. In this case, you're going to take the cash out of the bank account and go and buy some stock. The stock comes in and fills up your store or your warehouse, and then you look to sell the stock as quickly as possible, as this is now cash tied up that you cannot use for other purposes. For some of you, when you sell your stock, you get your cash straight away, either as cash or as credit cards for others though you sell on credit. If you sell on credit, you issue invoices and end up with things called debtors or accounts receivables. Then you want to collect from those debtors as quickly as possible to complete the cash cycle and get dollars to come back to you in your business, hopefully with a little bit of profit in there too. The reason we're interested in this cycle is because the strength of your cash flow is all about how long it takes the dollars to go all the way through that cycle. The faster you turn the cycle, the more the cash will, more cash flow will be available to you, allowing you to grow your business more rapidly, reducing the risk associated with your business and cost of using short-term debt, and potentially improving the profitability of your business. Of course, not all businesses are the same. The retailers out there are looking at this and potentially they're saying, I get everything in cash and credit cards, I don't have debtors. And they'd be right. Your cycle just goes from cash in the bank to stock and back into cash. That's a bit simpler. However, the biggest killer of many retail outlets is no matter where you go in the world, one of the challenges is poor management of stock. A bill comes in, and if they can't pay it because all the business's cash is tied up in stock or product on the floor, you've got to turn that stock and make sure your cash is working for you. Others might be saying, well, hold on a second. I'm in a service business. I don't have any stock. And again, I agree with you. However, you have something that acts somewhat like stock, and it's called work in progress. Basically, you have to take on a job from a customer. You do all the work for them. Then you send out an invoice. And while you're doing all that work, before you can send out the invoice, you have to pay out wages, rent, utilities, and so on. And this is using up all your cash, Then you send out an invoice and wait for your customer to pay you, which is more time before you get your dollars back into the business or your money back into the business. Whatever business you're in, you have some level of work, some type of working capital cycle. There are, of course, many other variations on that too, but it's important to understand how the cash flows through your business so you can find where your cash is hiding and speed up your working capital cycle. This cycle is measured in terms of the number of days it takes to turn. How many days on average does that stock sit on the shelf for you before you sell it? How many days on average does it take to collect from your debtors? The turns are days. Days are time, and time, of course, eventually is money. Turning your working capital cycle faster helps free up your cash flow. And of course, for something like this, you might want to learn a little bit more. And as part of the ezyCollect series here, we're going to be running 2 more webinars. One is on managing cash flow and one is on optimizing cash flow. And further details about that are also available on the Davidson Institute website. So one of the things about cash flow is that when a business grows, it needs more cash, which brings us on to the next step, which is about managing growth. The aim of a business, of course, is to make more profit. And the most common way of doing that is to increase sales. But when you're increasing sales, what do you need more of? You're going to need more customers. And if you have more customers, that means you probably need more product or stock to sell to your customers. If they're buying on credit, you're going to have more debtors. You may need more staff, more equipment, and you may need to move into larger premises to give you more space. More sales needs means you need more resources. This is why sales quite often means less cash. And as your sales go up, your cash goes down. So where does the cash come from to pay for these additional resources? Commonly, there are two sources, either more investment from the owners in the form of net worth, or from outside the business in the form of liabilities, which for many businesses means borrowing from the bank. When you're growing, it helps to understand what additional resources are available to you and what you're going to need and how and where you're going to source that extra resources from. This, again, we cover up in more detail. We've got a session on the Davidson Institute website about managing your business growth. And we take you through a process called the financial gap analysis, which projects the impact of growth on your business to help you make more informed decisions about growing. When a business is growing rapidly, you often see the business becoming more reliant on its overdraft or line of credit, dipping in there as quick and accessible cash. But is this the right type of borrowing for the business? Which brings us on to step 6, and that's borrowing properly. So when it comes to structuring borrowing properly, it's important to remember a cardinal rule. Match the life of the loan to the life of the assets. To explain what we mean by this, let's talk about a customer. The customer's name here is Terry, who ran a warehouse operation. A number of years ago, we went to visit Terry, and on this particular occasion, Terry had a massive smile on his face, and he said, "Come on over here and have a look at this. I just bought a brand new forklift. I paid cash for it, and I got a great discount." So we said to Terry, "That's great. Lucky you had the cash put aside to take advantage of the discounts." There was a problem though. The following Wednesday came around. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We get a call from Terry. "I've got a problem. I've got to pay my people tomorrow and I don't have the cash. Can you increase my overdraft limit?" So what Terry's done here was broke the cardinal rule. He had taken the short-term cash he needed for his day-to-day operations and he used it to buy a long-term asset, in this case, a forklift truck. Long-term assets add little bits of profit improvement over a long period of time. They're generally not used to generate short-term cash flow. Now, I'm not saying don't use your own cash to buy equipment, but make sure you don't need that cash for anything else in the meantime. Instead of using your own cash, consider whether borrowing might be a better option, where you match the repayments with how fast cash comes back from the use of the long-term assets. Getting your borrowing structure right can take a lot of pressure off your cash flow and a lot of stress off yourself as the business owner. So for more information, because this is again just a whistle-stop tour on purchasing assets and how they're financed, we've got some information on the website about purchasing business assets. These first 6 steps, preparing you for the end game, getting out of your business. And this is known as planning for transition or succession planning. And this is all about extracting the value you've created in your business. The best way to extract the maximum amount of value is to plan for it. And that planning should actually start the day you start the business. But sadly, many people leave it too late and are disappointed with the end result. If you haven't started thinking about when and how you're going to leave your business, we encourage you to start thinking about it now. There are 3 main ways to exit your business. You can close it down, you can sell it, or you can pass it down to family or to management teams. There are other combinations, but these are effectively the 3 main ways out. Of these 3, which one do you think will take the least amount of planning? If you said close your business, I would agree with you. You go into your office or your shop and you put a close sign on the door and hey presto, you're out of business. Now it may take some time for you to extricate yourself from your contracts and so on, but it does not require a lot of planning. My next question of these 3, which one would usually give you the least value for your business? And here it could be when you just close it down. If you simply close your business down, or if you're saying all the time, it's effectively as if you're saying all the time, effort, and money you put into building up that customer base, building up a successful, profitable business is not worth anything at all. However, if your business is truly profitable, if it has goodwill, but you want to realize that goodwill, and you have to have a plan to sell or pass your business on. So close it, sell it, or pass it down, whichever you choose will have an impact on how you run the business on a day-to-day basis and what planning you need to put into place. Now, if you decide to close your business, of course, it's not quite as simple as closing the front door. You may have obligations to staff, to customers, to suppliers that need to be managed to extract as much value as you can. But as we said, this exit requires the least planning, so it might also result in the least value. Now, on the other hand, if you're going to sell your business, this takes considerably more planning. But the better your plan, the more value you're likely to extract. The first step here is to think about who is going to buy your business. Is it likely to be a bigger organization? Is it going to be an investor? Will it even be a competitor? Or are they likely to want to run the business themselves, and so on? Once you settle on who the most likely buyer will be, you've got to set about making that business as attractive as possible to that buyer, of course, or set of buyers. Of course, the key thing here is demonstrating profitability and ongoing business viability. Do you have future contracts that are going to provide ongoing sales? Is there a market for your products in the future? Do you have documented systems, processes, procedures that someone else can pick up and run with to run your business? There's a considerable amount of planning that needs to go into selling your business, as you can appreciate. If you're thinking about passing your business on to family or a management team, then this often takes the most planning and maybe the most difficult. Again, the first step is to think about who wants the business. Is it your children? Is it your management team? And if you're going to pass on to a family, you need to consider things such as, will ownership and management be handed over at the same time? How do you ensure that the heir has the right skills to run the business and the finances to buy you out when the time comes? Similarly, if you decide to pass on to management, presumably they have the skills, but have they got the money to buy it from you? As you can appreciate, there's plenty of planning involved, but it's definitely worth the effort to ensure you extract the value you've worked so hard to build. As I've said already, if you haven't started already, start now. There are going to be things that you need to consider that will take time. And as you can appreciate, spending that time is going to help you in the long run and help your business in the long run. So there we have it. We've gone through a whistle-stop tour of 7 steps to business success. A successful business isn't just about more sales. Have your plan, monitor your financial position, understand the relationship to price, volume, and costs, manage your cash flow, borrow well, and plan for how you're going to exit your business. By taking these 7 steps of your business, you'll go a long, long way to making it even more successful. Now, I've left a couple of minutes for questions. So I'm going to have a look at the chat where I believe we have got a question or two. Just bring this over. Okay. Well, thanks to those who've attended. I can see that some of the attendees listed out where they're located, which is great. At this stage, I can't see any questions. If you haven't put a question in yet, now's the time to start typing it in away. And I also appreciate that, you know, maybe you haven't had time to think about a question. Okay. What if working capital cycle is negative? What's your best advice, guidance? And that's what ezyCollect's recommending, you know? So, and I actually might put that to ezyCollect actually, because of course ezyCollect are experts here at running their business as well and helping their business customers to succeed. You know, what would you recommend ezyCollect to your customers if the working capital cycle is negative? You know, what are the options available? And maybe ezyCollect can think about that answer as well.
Thank you for the question. Due to the limit of time, we'll be more than happy to get back to your question individually through email. And of course, we have a lot of solutions and tools available to help you improve your cash flow. We'll be more than happy to get in touch after the session.
Okay, I think I'm getting the call to say we are at time. So thank you again to those of you who attended. Wish you every success in your business journey. Please do have a look at the resources from Davidson Institute of Education. And if you can, get the chance to attend the next couple of sessions that ezyCollect will be running in conjunction with the Davidson Institute. Thank you.